Nobody wants to imagine what adults do to little kids. Nobody wants to imagine that filthy pedophiles and even worse, pedivores who actually cannibalize these children do what they do to the children. But they do what they do to the children, and they've been doing it for a very long time. I bring my friend Kathy O'Brien on here, who was trafficked through the White House and the Pentagon. Her dad, her family, that incestuous mob, they made child porn with her. Max Lowen, child porn. Rachel Vaughan in Australia, child porn. Now, unfortunately, we have to discuss because it's important to discuss and understand this is not isolated incidents of little girls who are now women. It's still happening right now, today, and we will wipe it out with the bravery of women like Rebecca Rose. Welcome, my love.
Oh, Danny, thank you. I really appreciate that strong introduction and speaking right to the issue in a very direct way. With my story, I, I've had a part of me that didn't want to look at the depravity inside those porn experiences when I was very small, or the connection to the SSP and the much bigger crime network that this was a part of. Like you said, this isn't,
Separate.
separate, and it's a much bigger enterprise than I ever was willing to admit because it was so connected to my family and what was going on there. So, recently, I'll say back in, just to give a little backstory. I mean, people know, your audience knows I was in the space programs, but this is all connected to that. And I guess I was not wanting to look at that precisely. I wanted to sweep it away into a vault because some of my memories are very, very disturbing. Um, Back in December, just a few months back, 12/12, I had an experience at night that was totally unprecedented, with a lot of memories coming up around my child trafficking experiences back in the 70s. I'm in my 50s now. That took over my body, like these small parts, small child parts coming up, telling their story in a way that I could not control. They animated me. They spoke in a child's voice through me. That is hard to admit. It's very vulnerable. It was shocking to me. My partner was with me at the time. It was shocking to both of us. It happened again in February, and I have that on record. I published it on my YouTube channel. Go back and watch, the 23rd episode in the Bringing Light to Darkness series. You can hear me. It is living proof of what I went through that I very much needed, to begin to integrate this at a deeper level. I grew up in southern New Hampshire in a community that was very much centered and focused on the military industrial complex. My father worked within that regime with a very high level clearance. His best friend, my godfather, Mr. Eckstein, how interesting is that? A German, came over after the war. During the war, he was a child, came over from Germany. They were both worked for the deep state in military industrial complex, naval intelligence, and so on. My godfather owned me from the time I was born till the time I was 7, and trafficked me into events, um, child sex events that were used to compromise adults working within the deep state military industrial complex and so on. My father had ties to the CIA. I learned when he was on his deathbed that a lot of his work trips were reporting back to CIA headquarters. Now, is there a link here or what? Is there a
Mhm.
link? I
Yeah.
was not willing to look at that because it is so disturbing. It hurts my heart. It hurts everything inside of me because this is so embedded with my family and what was going on. Not it wasn't random handlers and groomers and programmers in the SSP, but this is like my family. How much did my father know what was going on with his best buddy, Mr. Eckstein, that I was being taken to? What I remember mainly, he was in the Air Force, had a high level clearance with the Air Force before he was vetted into the military industrial complex. After that, he had a private plane. He took me places in the plane. My brother corroborates this, although I've never shared this aspect of my story with my brother at all. But he has said you went many places with him. I don't have full recall on that. I also went in places in the car. We would be gone several days. I would be drugged, hypnotized, made compliant for sex. I think ketamine was used for the drugging. That came around in the 60s. Would have been highly available in the 70s. It causes complete compliance and total amnesia. So I'd had pieces and parts of the memories for my whole life. I was in deep therapy and very suicidal in my late teens, having a lot of nightmares about this, all of this coming up, and yet the therapist I was working with could not handle it, and really I couldn't either. So it got buried in a vault for decades. Even though in my testimony, when I started speaking to the SSP material back in, I don't know, 6, 7, however many years ago, I included this, but I don't think I dug into it deeply enough. I would sort of run through it. In some interviewers, I've had it cut out completely from, this is very sensitive. As soon as we talk about child sex and also what you mentioned at the beginning, this is very, very hard for the human mind to hold. Child killing.
Mhm.
Children whose deaths are sexualized and filmed.
Mhm.
Not all the kids that were in this scenario lived. And
Mhm.
that is a hard, hard thing to say. It's a hard thing to remember and to feel at the same time. Like I was a kid, I can't be held responsible for that. But at the same time, I think there's some element of I couldn't stop what was happening. That's a big burden for like a toddler to handle.
Yeah,
Like
of
that's,
course.
I'm not doing that programming. I was a victim. I
Of
didn't cause
course.
the abuse,
Yeah.
the suffering, the death. So
Yeah.
let me pause there and just, I know there's lots to go into. I want to just pause and see what you're, yeah,
Yeah. Bless you. This is the hardest subject, and especially when you know something's been wrong, it doesn't, the body isn't able to deal with it all at one time. I mean, we're going to
yeah,
go on to your time on Mars in the secret space program. That's traumatic enough, but for you to now have these other memories to come up as a little girl, and you
yeah,
mentioned something about the guilt without saying that word, that you survived and other children didn't, and it's
yeah,
not your burden to carry. But as a child, the inner child, she holds on to that. She
yeah.
holds on to that. So bless your heart. It is the most sensitive subject, and I really honor your bravery and your testimony, and thank
Thank
you,
you.
because it will
Yeah,
also help other people that need to come through, need to unburden themselves. It's just so extraordinary. The wording that you used, you said that my God, as you said, my godfather owned me. The times I
mhm,
hear that expression, Kathy O'Brien was owned, Max Lowen was owned by her uncle and then trafficked under the Vatican, where she also saw child murders under the
yeah,
Vatican, and Rachel Vaughan, same thing, that all used in child
wow, yeah,
pornography.
yeah,
So many children out there, and filthy, dirty old men, mostly men, family
yeah,
men, fathers, uncles, godfathers. What on earth is possessing them? The devil, yes. Blackmail, yes. Money, power, the need for it.
yes,
Are the
yes,
bloodlines so psychopathized that they all come in with that feeling? My friend Dr. Julia Engel was one of the first little girls ever used in the very first mind control program. She was
mhm,
tortured by Mengele. They called him Dr. Green. There was
yeah,
always a nanny black in that program. So we're again letting people know and realize everything is connected. The
it is.
ETs, the space programs, the militaries, the satanic occult, it is all one beast system. And
Yeah,
people need to land that. Some people just laugh to hear about the SSP and the upgraded military secret space program soldiers. And we need to get to the heart of it and honor people like you, Rebecca, and thank you for your bravery. And you can see
mhm,
how affected you are just by speaking truth into the field, and it's a very
yeah.
emotive subject. You mentioned that your father was CIA. Again, there's the government link. The CIA is Central Intelligence Agency, you know. So you said
Mhm.
that you were being forced to make pornographic films from zero, which is newborn, to
And that's,
7.
yes, 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 yes. I have a passionate spark in there about the fact that a lot, if we look at like the Epstein material, it's like, they're teenage, nearly women. And that's not to diminish what's going on there and not to go down that rabbit hole, but to say like, yes, this involves infants and toddlers. It is not just older girls. It is newborns. It is the most deviant kind of sexual abuse, not like normal sexual abuse, but you know, um, unbelievable things that will shock the human mind. And because the more deviant it is, the more everyone is completely broken by it, and the more people's minds are fractured and they don't They don't have hang on, they're not able to locate the memory. So everyone kind of forgets, the perpetrators, the victims, everyone is kind of caught in this massive trauma field, especially in the moment when a child is sacrificed or killed. As a kind of mind control programming for the rest of the kids, you ever speak, and that's you. You will be killed. Um, there's an enormous amount of distortion, and I don't even have human language to talk about how deep down in the dark belly of the beast this actually is and how far it went. As I've said in my own interviews on my or videos on my channel, take the kind of worst case scenario you can imagine in this, involving children, sex, and so on, and take it about 10 steps further. You know, it's not fit for human language. And
No.
the things that happen to me are they're excruciating to, I mean, even giving language to them is like, it's so X-rated, it's beyond the beyond, and the human mind cannot hold it. I understand why I had to put it in a vault to survive. My handler, Mr. X Time, he died just over a year ago, and I knew that, holy shit, the shit's gonna hit the fan. I knew that something was gonna happen because in my experience, when a handler dies, whoa, look out, your memories are coming back. And it took some months, it took time. And I had always said, I need proof and evidence that this is actually true. Is this a fucking fiction or is this real? And what came through in December, through my body, through my voice, through my whole psyche and being, my whole energy system was overtaken by all of this. They spoke loud and clear, these parts, in a way that is undeniable truth. So, yeah, as intuitives, you and others listening, when you drop something into the field and say, I need an answer to this, it doesn't always come immediately, but you've made your request and the information will come. So it's been it's been a wild ride. I feel a little bit like people on my channel might be asking me to go into the space stuff. Like, why are you keeping on talking about this? But it is so seminal to my story and the story of humanity. Because as soon as we've desecrated human sexuality, especially with children, we are a lost people because our sexuality is our greatest gift. We are creators at a very high level. And this is part of our destruction. Why do I want to talk about this? We could say it's decades old, move on with your life. But the thing is, like you said at the beginning, this is still going on. And it's like, not on my watch, not on my fucking watch will this continue.
Absolutely.
That's that's that's
Yeah.
that's my statement on that. So I
Yeah.
have to keep going into it.
You
Thank you.
do, and I know, you have loving people that watch you. You're very well respected and deeply loved, and you are
Yes.
still healing. And here's something very, very important for everyone to get. When a handler dies, when an adult dies that's had hold over a child, when a mum or a dad dies, they take their energy with them. All of those emotional entanglements that identified you with him, they pull their energy. They have to. They have no choice. The soul energy is released. Then you're left with, who am I without that energy? What is this? When someone has done what that pig did to you, that murderous, horrible pedo, when someone leaves, that energy goes, you become undone energetically. That child is finally out of the basement, and she's going to be kicking and screaming and crying and
And that's
asking.
exactly what's funny. It's been very, thank you. You're reading me so well, and I really appreciate you seeing and being willing to go into this because there are many people, I will say this, that at least in my experience, there's not everybody wants to look at this, even in the disclosure community, because it's tormenting to the human heart. And I understand that.
Mhm.
I understand that. It is hard to hold. It is very hard to hold. And I want to thank everybody for being here, just holding space for this, because what I recognized immediately was that my healing is part of collective healing. My personal journey that I am on is part of planetary reckoning.
Mhm.
And there's something vibrationally that shifts in me that, of course, our personal journeys are no longer just for us. Whenever we're on the healing path or the opening to the greatness of the universe, that's the love within us, when we're moving down that path, it becomes an awakening for the whole planet. So we're very
Yeah.
connected in that. And I think that's why I was like, no, Rebecca, you don't have to keep this to yourself and just stuff it away. Please go into it because you will heal and the collective will heal. That's really important. That's part of my job. Yeah, it's part of why I'm here.
Yeah. But it has to be you first. It has to
Mm,
be
yeah.
everyone that's gone and suffered the way you have. It has to be you first, and then into the field to help others, but sharing along the way, but never to put someone's pain and suffering before your own at this stage, because we've put ourselves on the front line. We've done that, but it doesn't mean we
Yeah.
have to sacrifice ourselves for anyone either. We didn't come to be martyrs. We didn't come to be victims. Not that you're either of
Sure.
those, but it's important for people watching to understand that. For those that want a side view in how, again, the beast system is all connected with every single
Yeah.
system, they might want to watch some of the great and sadly now in heaven, Janet Ossenbard's series, like 13 episodes. It's called Full Cabal, or The Full Cabal, meaning the fall of the cabal. I don't know whether you ever saw any of those. It came out in 2019, 2020, but it
Oh, I
was,
don't think so.
oh my
Yeah.
God, it was the most punch in the face. The evil people that run our planet, all the things they've done, everybody. Now, I'll say allegedly. There were some things there that were so deeply disturbing. It's one of the reasons why I do what I do and why I stepped out the way I step out. So if we take it, people like allegedly the podesters, who are these politicians in all of the Hillary Clinton emails, again, guys,
Yes.
it is
Yeah.
not separate. It is all connected. It is the same beast system. And there's something that there's a video of a little boy absolutely screaming, and it has left me undone and disturbed because I know
Yeah.
that that child was taken out and we were hearing his last screams
Yes.
as this person is yelling. It's too much, as you say. It is the most unthinkable thing, yet we have to be strong. We have to support people like you and others, and we have to speak to it. We have to uncover it. It is our duty to bring the light and shine the light and have no fear. Otherwise, they continue again for another
Yes.
10,000 years. It's just altogether too much. Can you share with us at this stage, if you're comfortable, some of the ways that you have been allowing yourself to move into healing that aspect of your life?
Yeah, it's parts integration, working with those child parts, give them what they need, reparent them. That's the journey. That's really it. It's like embracing them with what do those child parts need? Safety, and they need to be seen and heard, and they also need to speak. That's part of the healing journey. I've had people write to me who are my followers and fans, and I have such, like you said at the beginning, amazing people supporting me across the internet realm, right? But I've had people say, you just need to heal. You don't need to talk about this anymore. But the thing is, talking about it is part of the healing. Stuffing it away, it's just a wound that festers. You have to give it air. You have to give it light, particularly an issue like this. So I have to keep my mouth trained to the topic, if you like, because it always comes around. We can talk about the horrors, of course, but also the hope and healing inside the story, because I made it out of this and I'm here by the grace of some divine intervention. The soul
Yeah.
plan, I think, the soul plan, higher soul plan, I was meant to not die and all of that. Um, yeah. So the healing path, to your point, is really right now. I've had a long journey over the last, I don't know, 12 years of working with child parts, and this is no different. We always have the opportunity to give those child parts what they didn't have in the moment of trauma back then. We couldn't fight, we couldn't flee, we couldn't do anything, we couldn't call for help. So again, make them safe, listen to them, and just keep doing that day after day after day. They come into integration. It's not so difficult because I've done this work so much. It's just folding them in a more um, focused and all-encompassing way. Like, I hear you. And that dialogue actually happened. You can hear it live in my number 23, Bringing Light to the Darkness series on my YouTube channel, Series Blue. The audio file that I shared with my audience within that longer length episode, um, you can hear me dialoguing with the screams of the child coming through. They're going to kill us. We told, and we weren't supposed to tell. There was death programming inside of this. You tell, you die. We'll come after you. But you can also hear my adult self, the part, speaking now, healed, very, just regulated, right? Like talking to those parts, going, "Hey, I'm here. I hear what you're saying. You're safe. No one's coming after you. You're safe. Have a breath with me." Come in as the warm, welcoming mother, the sheltering mother. So there's a lot to that. Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of the healing is allowing those kids to know that they're safe and protective, and that's in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest things for any adult who's been through trauma like that, or, on any level, because it's all traumatic, is the fact that we learn that we are the adults that our child was screaming out for,
Yes.
unfortunately. And I think
Mm.
it is terribly, terribly sad. It's a very sad truth to learn. However, we are the ones then that take hold of the healing.
Yes.
I wanted to
Well, and
mention,
I always say this in my client sessions when I'm working with people who've had difficult experiences, and there's many of those, whether it's space abductions or something else. I always feel and see and sense, and this is true of my journey, that we are not given anything we're not resourced ultimately to handle. So when I came in for all this, I wrote into my script a heck of a lot of help. I didn't come down to do this by myself. I embrace and trust the support that's around me that has gotten me this far, and that's something I is warm in my heart and always present. It allows me to show up in a way that isn't, I could have gone down a lot of different roads, and I didn't. There's still a warmth of heart, a caring for others. There's not like this hatred for whoever. There's no hate inside of me. Um, I'm just part of the undoing of the beast, and everybody's got their role to play. So, the openness with which I'm moving through this and have moved through this, I credit to my meditation practice and the journey of the heart, which is really pivotal and central to what keeps me, I guess I want to say, sane. When those parts came through on the 12/12, and also again on in February, the one I had a recording of, I worried for my mental health. Is this my break with reality where I'm gonna like I can't any longer control what's happening to me now? Anytime where we have a glimpse beyond the veil of our normal functioning and our egoic identity, that can be threatening. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, no, 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 this is okay. Bring it through. This is a sign of absolute health, because what are you doing? You're discharging the trauma and putting the fragments of memory back together. You're putting fragmented parts back into the whole. That's integration. That's healing. This is a sign of wellness, not of illness.
oh,
So I've had to pivot my perspective on that, because what my mother had dissociative identity disorder. She was overtaken by reptilian energy and would go crazy with violence with me, abusing me till I was unconscious. And she wouldn't remember those episodes because she wasn't there. She was someone else. So, and her mother before her, I mean, these are all marks of trauma untended that has gone down through my bloodline, right? So it's like I get to be the one in the family line who's stopping this. And this is part of the wellness coming through ultimately. So I kind of had to move that through that stage where I thought like, oh shit, this is where I'm going to totally lose my mind and not be able to, you know, function in this reality, because the trauma burden has been just
mm.
clearly too much. But I've recovered from that, happily so.
Bless your heart. It's so much. Just to honor you and others too, and the very many different survivors that I've interviewed on my channel, and that I see
Yeah.
as a huge honor, because to be able to hold space, to honor someone's testimony, to have them feel comfortable enough to do that really is an honor. And I've heard so many different survivors say things like they know they have a kill switch. Now, you mentioned death programming, meaning that the
Yeah.
little child in you was told over and over again and shown and violated in many ways that if you tell, you will die. Again,
Yep.
just to bring in alignment with the rest of the death system, I want to tell you guys out there that if you watch The Fall of the Cabal, The Fall Cabal by Janet Ossenbard, who I believe was taken out, that's my own personal thought, you will see there are elements of personnel in the hierarchical Vanderbilt, the Vanderbilt Castle. It is alleged, and there is artworks of children in their underwear lining up with their hands tied behind their back. I mean, anyway, regardless, it's a very sick thing to paint. It is a very disturbing thing to paint. And there was an empty swimming pool, and there are some dreadful images. And it is said and told there were many children that were unalived in these environments. Again, it is alongside the military, it is alongside the government, it is alongside the satanic occult and other industrial complexes. There is a known ritual, it's called the 12-year-old boy ritual, and they take 12-year-old little boys because they're right at the beginning of their perfect pubescence, and one child is chosen, and one child is unalived in front of all of the others. The children are all forced to receive the most brutal sex, although it's just complete violence and violation, you
Yeah.
know, in their behinds. But they are broken, they are traumatized, their spines are bruised. It is absolutely abhorrent what happens to them. This 12-year-old satanic ritual is known in all of the realms, on and off planet also. And they know that if they tell, they will be unalived. And
Yeah.
a lot of these 12-year-old little boys end up in senior global positions.
Yeah. Yeah. Danny, thank you for speaking to that. It's hard to hear, it's hard to hold, but it's
Mhm.
also part of the truth that has to come up and be reckoned with. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And we have to stop separating. Oh, that would never happen. Not my government, not my prime minister, not my senators, not my teachers, not my this, not my this. Yes, every single system has been harmed and set up in a way that we go through life. We don't realize what's happening most of the time until we remember, like you have. So
Yeah.
thank you. A very, very difficult subject to start with, but one that we must not shy away from.
Thank you for just boldly holding this space for me to speak to that and again to the audience. It's no small thing. And it's coming up, baby. It is coming up from the depths, and we are looking at it. So, the favorable thing too is that there is a lot of movement. There is a lot of movement going on, and people say, "Where is disclosure?" It may not be as fast as we want, but shit's coming up, and
It's here.
the general populace is looking at it. I did an in-person interview down in Los Angeles, February, late Feb. That video just dropped on Saturday, and it was that night after the interview that I had that other episode. I was down in Los Angeles with a friend, and like all the parts started coming up. Like, we told and now we're going to be killed, because that was my first time. He's got 7 million subscribers. So,
Mm,
it was a big audience, and it was not the
fabulous.
disclosure fringe community. This was like normies. I was speaking to
Ah,
normies. And
well,
that was somehow terrifying for me, Danny, because it
yeah,
wasn't
of
the close
course.
comfort of people who already know about this stuff. It was like, we're blowing the lid off to people who may not be ready. Now, I haven't gone and looked at the interview. It was given a title that was very whitewashed, and I was devastated. This morning, I learned that the title had been changed to include child trafficking. He doesn't want to be deplatformed. I get that, but I'm so grateful because more people can see it. But I did make the connection between the CIA and government involved in this. This wasn't my godfather abusing me in a back room and filming it. It was a much bigger crime network that, yeah, we're exposing, but to the point of disclosure that he was willing to host me. Loved the interview, really wanted to get it out there, and it's finally there being viewed by a much larger audience. I feel like is a little bit of a success on my part that I was able to get it out a little further, if you like. Um,
Yes. Can
yeah,
you,
and I
can
will
we
keep
know?
going with that.
Yeah, can
Go
we
ahead.
know so we can watch it? Can we know the
Yeah,
name here?
I've not even clicked on the channel since Saturday when it dropped, but my informants, my people tell me what's going on with it. So I'm a little bit shy about the interview. It's on a channel called Soft White Underbelly, Mark Lyda.
Yes.
I'm, yeah.
Uh,
Yep. So it came out originally with the title "A Haunted Childhood," and I was like, I have to admit, my parts just kind of went, "Oh my God, they're not really putting in the title what it really is," and I felt like, "Oh my God, the censorship is too much." And then this morning, I think I didn't look, I've not looked at the channel, like I said, I don't know, haven't seen the video, but yeah, it's got a different title connected to child trafficking. Yeah,
Okay, so soft white underbelly, and I'll see if I'll hopefully remember to put it underneath so people can go. But soft white underbelly,
right.
I mean, that channel that he covers, I mean, he gets the most beautiful homeless people off the street and sits them down and they tell their stories, and it's just, oh, it's
Yeah,
just so harrowing. So the audience is there, the inbuilt audience is there. I mean, they have heard multitudes of horrors, but to
yeah,
link it to the
yeah,
famous and the rich and the wealthy, and also Diddy, the music industry, this is all the same. We had
yeah,
Epstein for the finances and all the blackmail on the islands and him helping himself self to young girls, young children.
yeah.
And we had Epstein, the big fat Hollywood bloke, Weinstein for Hollywood. They were made sacrificial lambs, and Diddy was made the sacrificial lamb for the music industry. And there's, of course, there's more than him. Of course, there's more than those three. But it is
Yeah.
exactly all the same thing. Getting people in compromising positions with a child, and whether some of them partake or not, irrelevant. They're caught, they're trapped, they're done, aren't they? They're done.
Yeah, because you keep, that's the fastest way to compromise somebody is film having sex or being involved somehow in this scenario. They own you forever. You're never going to get out of that. Yeah.
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 Well,
And when we talk about, like these sick fuckers, how did they get into this? Well, we can see the chain of control. My father, I believe, was very controlled and owned himself by his employers. And that's not to let anybody off the hook, but there's a
no.
higher hand involved in the compromise and the distortions, the inversions, the perversions, that are keeping the whole system going. It's very precise. Yeah.
The thing is, some of them have gone through similar abuses.
Yes. Hmm.
However, they know what they're doing.
Yes,
It didn't
exactly.
turn
And they're
you into
responsible for their behavior. They know what they're doing.
it
Yes.
didn't turn you into a monster, but
Thank
you're the
goodness.
cycle breaker. So, oh
Yeah.
my
And
gosh.
as this has come back to me, it's like I think I have even another step, another foot in the door of my own like dignity. Like, Rebecca, wow, you're here. And just I think honoring myself and what I've kind of pulled through. I didn't go down the route of drinking and drugs and self-harm, although I was hospitalized with suicidal tendencies, and my years 19, 20, 21, 22 were pretty grim. I made it out of that, but I didn't go where I could have. I could be homeless, I could be an addict, I could be so many things. I could be dead, and that gives me something to look at. Like, oh, okay, I'm here, and there's a journey to be made, and part of this is incredibly public, and it's meant to be. That's why
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah. God love you. We're so glad that you are here.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to segue into another arena. I mean, again, it's not going to be pretty, guys. So brace yourselves because it's like, how could you go from being a newborn to seven and older and suffering that, and then being sold or put into a secret space program, a military operation?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
take your time, share.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, before we started recording, I said, thank you, Danny, for reflecting back that this was actually pretty harrowing. Because I said on a day-to-day basis, this is just kind of with me. And I don't want to say normalized, but a little bit like this is my life. This is the story. So I appreciated your candor in presenting that to me. So, well, I think a lot of your audience knows that I was taken around age of 10, right? I was 9 right before I turned 10 in 1982 in the fall, September, into Great Lakes Naval Station, north of Chicago. I was twinned, very deviant ways, kept in cages. We were traumatized, trauma bonded, and sent to Mars, weaponized as super soldiers. This is like a quick rundown for people who may not know the story. Um, and I didn't realize also, by the way, that there is in fact corroborated testimony of a jump gate between Naval Station Great Lakes and Mars. I've done a few interviews. One of those was with Dr. Sala, who said, other people have mentioned that jump gate. So it's just, I like these little tidbits of corroborating testimony because I don't listen to very much at all. I keep myself in a bit of a vacuum so that I know what comes through me is mine. Um, so on Mars, over time, and this is a 20 and back plus, it seems to me, because I was cloned so many times, it can be a little swimmy about how long was I out there when there's multiple clones doing multiple things. But on Mars, slowly augmented into what we know as colloquially a super soldier. Um, and over time, we had incidences with the mantid population locally. You and I have spoken a bit about that. We had sometimes the work that I was doing was kind of boring. We were just patrolling the bases, keeping the bases safe, keeping the assets protected of, consortium of involvement with military and corporate interests on Mars. So um, I was out on patrol. I had learned to pilot, and of course, you're piloting with the mind. I was out on patrol, just checking out the scene, and something happened. I was, always tethered back to central command through the mind and through implants, right? So I couldn't leave base even if you're on patrol. They know where you are. But the Draco had come in. They were, making a long story short, they were running an illicit soul scalping operation on Mars at the time. And they had these little Mars reptilians, locals, kind of, I want to say, co-opted, almost like mind controlled. It was much a deeper level than what goes on Earth with mind control. They were soul owned by the Draco to operate the soul scalping, um, crime network, really. Soul scalping crime network on Mars for the Draco Empire. So I'm out on patrol. I'm co-opted in my mind, and I am starting to go down. The craft is, I'm being shot at. I'm being, corralled by other craft, right? And they board my craft, have me in a chokehold with a gun to my head, a weapon to my head. It's not an ordinary gun, it's some other kind of weapon. But I start to go down. I crash on Mars, again, making a long story short. And I'm picked up by another group of these local, they're short reptilians on Mars, indigenous, native. And this group, it's a tricky story because I would say my memories of being with this group, they pick me up. My body is broken, my technology is broken, my biology is broken, and the craft is pretty much kaput, not entirely, but they pick me up, they bring me back to their underground domicile where they live. They don't live on the surface, they live underground. And through their spiritual connection with the Mars energies, had managed to create food, water, and light for themselves to survive. This was a very regressed group in the fact that they didn't have technology in the ways that we think of craft and weapons and that thing. They had none of that. They were primitive in a sense, but they had very advanced the spiritual capacity. Um, I enjoyed my time with them up to a point. It was one of the most humanizing experiences I had in the programs. Now, that's not saying a lot because the programs are meant to be dehumanizing, at least in my experience in that iteration back in the 70s and 80s. And eventually, I wanted first to know if I had a soul. This was very important. And I think they must have known somehow about the wider network of soul scalping by the Draco at this time. I don't think that these guys were necessarily connected to the bad little reptilians that were working for the Draco, some other group that seemed very disconnected from them. Um, they wanted to know if I had a soul, and I think ultimately they were looking to see if I could save them through my biology or my technology. And eventually I always said they cannibalized me for parts. That's true. They wanted to see if my eggs, my human reproductive system, could help them survive. They were down to a very, maybe 20 or 30 in their group. And I understood they had survived some kind of cataclysm. I think it might have been nuclear in nature. Mars seemed like a very beat up planet. It's gone through many iterations of destruction on Mars, some of them I think caused by various groups of beings over time. And they were dying out. So ultimately, they tried to create, and they did create to some degree, offspring with my eggs. And I was carrying a child that was part reptilian. Um, So there's a lot to the story. I end up going back to the home ship as I'm dying. They don't have the technology like the Greys and the Draco. We know about them. They're geneticists. They would have known how to use me in a way that wouldn't kill me. They would have been able to get what they needed without causing my death. But ultimately, that's what happened on Mars. And I was a clone. But as the reptilian hybrid that I was carrying, um, they put me in the power generator of my down craft on Mars, thinking that because it was wed with my energetic signature, that it might be able to save me, like being in an incubator or a womb, save me in the child. Oddly, and this is so quantum in nature, my good people from the Light Alliance ship that I'm incarnated from, if you like, um, brought me up to that ship in the pod where I identify as existing in tandem with this incarnation now. They brought me back to the pod with my child, who I call Blue, and eventually he was born and became part of the kind of refugee population of that Syrian lightship. He didn't stay there. Eventually, he was co-opted by Draco later on, but back in, I don't know, a year or two ago. I can't remember exactly when Blue came into my field and I understood this whole story. So that's a lot to track on. I just gave
That
you in
is.
just about 5 minutes, like a full rundown of a very, very big story with a lot of moving parts. So if you didn't quite get that, I'm with you. So, but I just wanted to kind of give a synopsis and give some context there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. Because
to
I
all of
have
that.
questions and I've made notes so we
Yeah.
can break it down.
Yeah.
And thank you. That is so much. To those again who are so well versed in the very many true testimonies of Tony Rodriguez, James Rink, you,
Yeah.
others,
Yeah.
then they will be aware of such, such testimonies. I cannot, will not validate others that I don't know. But I really trust you. Um,
Mhm.
you mentioned the jump gate to Mars. Please, can you explain where it is? Tell us again the name of the base. What does it look
Yeah.
like? How does it work?
Yeah. The base is Naval Station Great Lakes, north of Chicago. It's the biggest naval training station in the country, in the US. I don't have recollection of the gate itself because I would have been so far gone at that point after being twinned with Dean. My mind would have been very fractured. So I actually don't have a recollection of like what is that. When I spoke at a conference with Daryl James some years ago, he said, you talked about that jump gate at the naval station. He's like, I was there in the military, and there was this big no-go zone with a lot of underground stuff going on. I wonder if that was what this was about. So other people in various ways have kind of corroborated this. So I can't, I wish I could give a little more information on that. I really don't know. Yeah,
Mhm. I had a couple of testimonies where getting to Mars is just like going to work. You just go in a room, go through
totally.
a door, and you're literally there. Someone
It's
else
not really
spoke about
fancy.
right.
Yeah,
Someone else
yeah,
spoke
yeah,
about going in an elevator again to try and make it normal in the mind so it doesn't
yeah.
freak the person out. And they leave
Mhm.
Mars every day. Some of them, there's a lot up there
Mhm.
as we know, and then they come
Yeah.
back. It's just so interesting. You mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, that's so well said. Like when I was on the moon and operating the jump gate as a child between the moon and Dulce, it was the same thing. It's like going into your bathroom, like you don't even know. So, excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's great. Now you've mentioned another subject I'll have to make a note about and come back to. So I love it. And thank you again. So you mentioned that when you were captured 9, 10, and recruited into the secret space program, you were twinned. You were partnered with a little boy who you called Dean. Can
yeah,
you describe him to us?
yeah,
And are you still in touch today?
yeah. Ooh, this is rich. So Dean was a little sandy-haired, kind of reddish, freckled kid about my age, and I do not know. I imagine it was our frequencies. They wanted to, find a match, so to say. So the two can become one, one in mind, one in body, one in spirit, in the programs later, because the twinning, to go back to Dr. Green, Mengele, 1940s Auschwitz, they were doing all these experiments on twins, and they found that there's a lot going on between twins, and the twins are stronger together than they are apart, working as a singular. So this was part of the experimentation, I believe, of the era. And it was, again, very, very depraved. They trauma bonded us to the point where eventually we would be forced to abuse each other and so on and so on. But the end result in on Mars would be that, if you have the one thing you love in the world, and I love Dean, like I love my own life because he was part of me and I was part of him, you will do everything to have a successful mission because you want both of you to come back. Or maybe I just wanted him to come back, right? So he was like all I had in the programs. That was any kind of goodness. And if you look at twinning, scroll around, dig around, find, you will find that this is part of the Illuminati playbook as well. And in the end, oftentimes, one twin is forced to kill the other. And ultimately, that was what happened on Mars. So again, we're coming into a trauma field and how that just break the spirit. But that's part of the programming. It's always going to end up that way. So um, I hope that it's a quick rundown of the experiences with Dean. We worked as psychic recon together as looking over at the mantid labyrinth, for example, or we were teamed up with a small unit to be the psychic seers, remote viewing a lot of different things. And that was sort of our strength and our project together, even though we could fight and patrol and, operate craft and be on ground crew or air crew or whatever. There was also that part, the delicate art of the psychic capacity being used in a more militarized way.
Wow. And being so young as well. I mean, children are the most psychic elements. I mean, with psychic, we come in with that, and those skills are enhanced, but they'll use a lot of trauma and torture to
Yes,
enhance them.
yes.
And we're more vulnerable and we can't escape. We just can't
Mhm.
escape. You mentioned the several bases on Mars. Can you name them? Can you tell us about them?
Yeah, the main base I recall is just south of the equator, but I know others have named names around that, but I wasn't ever. It's so interesting with all this. How can you be in a place for so many years, at least in human terms, and not know the name of where you are? But that's the thing, that there's no need to know. You were supposed to be kept in the dark and not know anything about when you would leave, when this would change, what the next augment to your physical technological form was going to happen. Like, there was absolutely no information. At least this was my experience in that era of the program. So I have no idea what the base is. Sort of like, the Junkade and Naval Station Great Lakes. Like, I can't give you a lot of details, unfortunately. Um, so, and I think we were shipped around to different bases, but my recollection, the main one is just south of the equator on Mars. And it always felt to me to be very, for some reason, it may have been the suits we were wearing, high-tech suits, conscious, sentient suits that made me feel like hot on Mars. You'd think as it's farther away from the sun, it'd be quite cold, but I always felt very warm and like the sun was very bright. Could have something to do with the atmosphere, and a lot of wind, a lot of dust. But I never felt like uh, somehow we were able to survive in the atmosphere of Mars without a lot of intervention, or at least interventions that I don't recollect.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
hmm. We hear that too from other truthers who've been there, that part of Mars is absolutely the atmosphere is different, and other areas they may needed to use some kind of apparatus in order to breathe. And
Yeah.
depending on where the different indigenous species lived, that also Tony Rodriguez reports on too. And I love the fact that NASA, which stands for not a space agency, and they should just
Yeah.
put a Z for Nazi, because it came from, again, the Mengele, the mind
Yeah.
control program. So a lot of people don't realize that's still what NASA is, and they've always lied, and they'll lie till they're taken out. Um, but God, gosh, what was I going to say? So many things to say. I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I just
We
get
were
so
just talking
mad.
about other people saying like, oh, about the bases maybe, or the atmosphere on
The
Mars or
bases,
stuff.
the atmosphere, NASA, they at times have accidentally photographs got out of the bright blue sky and the sunshine, proving there's an atmosphere there. Then they would scrub it and, try and eliminate it, or the rover would pick something up. And, it's just such a nonsense. Who did I have on the other day who was talking about her time? Oh, Niara Isley.
Oh yeah, Neuron. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Niara.
yeah.
She's my
Mhm.
Saturday night. She's coming out on Saturday. We met yesterday and or the day before, and she was up there on an archaeological dig around the
Yeah,
face. I mean, just
yeah,
incredible,
yeah.
incredible. I was trying to think, and Niara, I trust her testimony too. So
Mhm.
you guys go back and watch Niara if you haven't already. Um, Now, so the bases, so you don't remember how many, but you saw several. Can you describe at all what they look like inside? How do you get into them?
Yeah. They don't look like any, I mean, to me, to my recollection, there wasn't, it's like nothing fancy, I want to say. Like nothing super high tech. This was and I was, while on the moon, I was owned by the Germans, it was a Nachtwaffen
You
base.
were owned by the
Uh,
Germans on the moon.
hmm But later on, that was preceding to all of this that I'm talking about now. But on Mars, I remember military interests, American corporate interests, and I don't remember Germans. So I was traded off somehow. Yeah, all of that gets a little swimmy and confusing to track with linearly. But So to your question, it was very almost like a lot. I mean, it was a lot of it. It was also underground because the Mars environment is not necessarily friendly the way that Earth is. It's harsh. It's harsh. So a lot of it was underground and, ordinary buildings in a way, like stairs. You don't have to go through a jump gate to get above ground, or, in our quarters were nothing fancy. They kind of seemed dated, like very almost vintagey in a way. There was a craft I recall operating that seemed like it was an old World War II helicopter. It was a total junker that had been retrofitted for Mars. And this might have been left over from Germans. I don't know, but it was kind of like an old beater car, like when you're a teenager and you get your first car. It was a little bit like that. So, like, not talking super high tech. Now, I'm sure that changed over time, but again, this is in this iteration of the programs, this decades ago, right? So, um, nothing super fancy, nothing super fancy, but at the same time, there was a lot of experimentation going on. And I don't know, I'm curious about what the budget would have been back in, let's talk about, early 80s versus now, when we know there's a lot more technological advancement, a lot of tech we've gotten from extraterrestrials and really built out. Different things have gone on in the intervening time, from back there to now. Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Tony has mentioned before, and I haven't met Randy Kramer, but I think that it may have
yeah.
come from him initially, because he's also a respected SSP former captain. Um,
Yeah.
and he mentioned the name Ares Prime as a major
Yeah.
structure of a base. And then there's another boy out there, and I will never believe him until I even pop my clogs. This guy comes out of nowhere years ago. It's, sir, yes, sir, I was a 48 strand, the DNA altered super soldier, man. Yeah. Mwah. Mwah, kissing his guns. I mean, it was hilarious. And you can tell some people when they waffle on you like, oh, there's no ounce of resonance of truth coming out of you. You're like a walking, talking cartoon. Or do you remember that? Sometimes you just got to lighten up the subject matter here because it's pretty heavy, and I can't believe I read my face as I'm sunburnt today. But anyway, okay, so this
Oh,
guy, he also looks like Johnny Bravo. Johnny
oh,
Bravo! I love that cartoon. Johnny Bravo. That's hilarious. Oh dear. But anyway, so the Aries Prime that has been confirmed by somebody else as being like one of the main kind of metropolis, that the military are linked to.
yeah.
And also we hear that there are from you two, there are so many different kinds of species. Now, a lot of people say that you keep mentioning the Germans on Mars, Germans in Antarctica, here on this planet. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're on the Planet series or the Planetoid or the Star System series, where Tony was also trafficked to through the American military. They're
Yeah.
everywhere. They call themselves the Deutsch there. There's a lot of thinking that the Germans made specific agreements with specific groups of reptilian, Draco, Sakar.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Well, we can come back to that because you mentioned that the reptilians on Mars had a soul-scaping plan, which sounds horrific. Can you explain to people what that is? And you mentioned it was the indigenous reptilians that the Draco reptilians were hunting and soul-scaping. Is that correct?
Yeah, so thank you. It does warrant some deeper probing and clarifications. The Draco were running this remotely, of course. That's their capacity. Draco Empire running a soul scalping operation. Part of that was gathering the souls of these indigenous reptilians and co-opting them so they would do their bidding. Now, they were seeking vessels, humans from the bases. Humans from the bases. They could get the body, the vessel, and clone that. They could do things with the consciousness and the soul. We always say like the currency of exchange is DNA and technology out there in the galaxy. Currency of the soul. Let's not forget that. That's very important. Mm. So in a way, I would say the Draco were at the higher helm. This was their operation, but they were using the local Mars reptilians for the dirty work. Yeah. So it seemed to be that they were looking for various species, and part of it to feed the Shikar and the higher ups in the empire at the time. So um, does that clarify for you a little bit
Yeah,
what was
that's
happening?
definitely and in terms of soulscaping, what would be the process to capture an indigenous reptilian and remove their soul or their consciousness? How would they do it?
Yeah, that's through, I mean, it's all through energetic quantum means. So it's not like, oh, we're, you know, I don't know how to describe that because there's a limit to our human language to describe what's happening within that. It's like um, it's energetic in a way in nature, but almost like if you took somebody's liver out or you took, it's similar, but it's not happening in the physical. Like if you took my organ out, you'd have a bloody thing in your hand. In this case, what is the soul? It's ephemeral in nature, and it can somehow be, it's like tethered to some other energetic frequency to pull it out of the body. I'm not describing that very well, but there's a way of removing it. And this has to do also with the making the being compliant through a kind of mind meld or mind control on the spot. We know the Draco are excellent at this. In all the worlds, the Draco are the best at this. So sort of like getting the Draco, the Draco mind meld in your brain. And that's what they were doing when I left base. I can feel that my consciousness is being fucked with, and it's the Draco remotely messing with me. So they're trying to get at my biology, my technology, but also the soul, right? So there's a lot to that. I don't know how do you actually store a soul or store this gets into a big swimmy conversation in a way.
Mm.
But it seemed like they could transfer the soul to another body. So in effect, these little, I call them little, they were short, reptilians on Mars, the locals, would have almost like a Draco consciousness put inside of them, even though they retain their normal body, which is kind of far out, but not if you look at what happens in the SSP. Some of us, there's a removal of the consciousness during sleep, and there you are. You're 20 years later, you come back, right? So it's not so far fetched.
Mhm.
It's along those same lines. When we put the consciousness into a clone body, well, you can do that amongst different species. That gets pretty weird, but the Draco were exemplary of having that technological capacity, the ability to do that. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm. There's different methods of extracting the soul, as we've been told, in various different ways. And
yeah,
there are some that say it's not the whole entire soul that is taken every single time and
yeah,
transferred. Sometimes there's elements or fractals taken, others are left behind, but it can also leave the being, let's say an indigenous reptilian on Mars, somewhat zombified, not quite themselves,
yeah.
not fully aware. Very,
Totally. Thank you.
very
Yeah, thank you for
important.
saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think it's time that people really started to take these things we're discussing here because it's so crucial to understand how this happens. Mind wiping, soul fracking, soul scaping. Who's doing it?
yeah,
How's it done? You said that the Draco reptilians are some of the greatest. I mean, we don't want to compliment them, of course, but at doing this, and also really overtaking the mind and paralyzing and getting in there.
yes,
I always remember years ago, Jean-Charles Moyen telling a story where he was fighting with a black Draco, and at the minute when they were in combat, he made his mind become snow. He imagined snow as a way to try and block the reptilian who was trying to
yeah,
read him and obviously kill him. And so, again, we need to be aware of these tools that every human has. We have the tools. We are amazing. We are a
yeah,
shock and an awe to everybody else. And despite them dimming the sun, still, in my opinion, trying to terraform our planet. Like, I don't believe half the things that I've been told, not to put people into fear because we are winning. But again, we've got to talk to these subjects, you and I, because people have been hoodwinked. And I think by a reptilian faction that's been putting information out on YouTube through different people. That is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it, but I won't go too far into it. But again, to remind people, like, oh, don't be nervous because we have skills, and you was one up there on Mars, and you could feel the Draco coming in and trying to trespass in your energy field. And you're
Yeah.
also into, go ahead. Just tell us, how did you
No, no,
protect yourself?
there's so much to say. I was just going to say that it's there's a point to come back to, which is this imperative that we develop our own consciousness. So we are the masters, and we cannot be fucked with in this way. We cannot be co-opted. So the more of us that are settling down into that path of spiritual development and self-awareness, the less we're able to be co-opted as a people. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
And I want to say, if I ran into some horror like that, I'd be in my mind, like kicking the shit out of them. Motherfucker, I'd be just bashing them and kicking them and, in the balls and taking them out. And oh my God, I'd be so violent. But anyway, again, show them, don't be scared. Like, don't be all quivering, like, oh, the Draco, the Cicada, the Greys. Oh, it's so terrifying. Yes, whatever. But you got to rise up, man. You got to rise up because you become like oil and water. They can't, cling on, and people have got to just get a little bit more of a clue about, again, our own technology, what we're able to do. And that's why they
Well,
hunted us. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, and the as long as we're keeping a fear vibration, we're going to be kind of in this low place, or we're more co-optable. So, what I said about coming back to my own healing path, the development of the human heart is actually our most powerful protection, and that's part of development of consciousness at the same time, and that's
Mm.
part of the awakening on the planet that's happening now. So, just bring a little plug back to that. Yeah, we're intrepid and strong, no question about it. I mean, why do they want our souls? Because they have a lot of information inside of them. This is nobody's first rodeo here. We've been through many incarnations on this planet and off this world, containing a breadth and depth of information within our cellular memory and our DNA code that is really unprecedented. We contain a treasure trove of information. So meditation and spiritual inquiry continue to be the centrifuge of my life for that reason.
Mm.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to your meditation technique because it is so powerful and we need to know more about it. But before we go there, let's now go. If we're ready, let's step onto the moon. We want to
Yeah.
know, how do you get there? What does it look like? And as much information as you can remember and what took place, please. Take your time.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot there. We need a whole nother segment. So this is going to make people's minds swim a little bit because all of my experiences on the moon happened when I was quite small, not when I was 9, but starting when I was 4, I was being taken to what I call the underground bus station at night. Um, Almost like going to a day job, like you mentioned, people going through the jump gate to Mars every day. This was like, oh, they're coming to get me for work. And it started very early. I remember being taken to some underground, again, I don't know, there's no neon sign saying you are at Langley. I suspect it was Langley. Um,
Langley.
Air
What's
Force
Langley
Base.
for those that don't know?
Yeah, it's a big, Naval Intelligence Center and CIA, and this is a headquarters for a lot there in Langley. Um, I think it was probably going there. Doesn't matter. We can drop it and just say the bus stop, but from there, I would be kind of strapped into, like if you're going on a roller coaster and you have straps around your shoulders to keep you from ejecting out of the craft. I think it was probably a craft that had a warp drive kind of propulsion system, so moving faster than the speed of sound, in a way being cloaked as it would leave the atmosphere, and this would take me right to the moon. I remember having a lot of bewilderment as a child, being fucking frightened about what was happening, and come up into the underground. And I just remember my memories there. If I recollect Mars, it's very bright and warm, and here it's very dark and I would say cold, but I was not in the above ground atmosphere of the moon. I was down in the labs with the Germans. So the Germans and the Greys and the Draco had a huge hybrid kind of experimental lab going on there. And I mostly interacted at that time with the Draco. I know I keep saying this, they own me. There's this element of slavery inside of this. You are owned, and you don't own your own mind, your own consciousness. So I was a subject to the Draco, and they were training me to work psychically and telepathically and telekinetically early on. I would, in the hybrid labs, the Germans, they were all keeping what I would call as benevolent beings in captivity, using their DNA, using their body parts, bodily secretions, and their consciousness, their DNA material, and so on, um, using their benevolence in a way for experimentation. And I was to go in and kind of get a snapshot of their DNA through my mind, like almost like a screenshot, and taking that and ferrying it back to like a main data center, a main computer where all of this was kind of kept. And that was sort of preliminary, like easy work. It was introductory level type of job for a small child. What were they doing? Co-opting my innocence. I was made to feel like I was harming these beings in some way. I was supposed to befriend them and then betray them, which is such a heartbreak for a child. So this is sort of like SSP light. One of the things that was, if it hadn't already been identified that I was an owned being without any of my own volition early on through the porn scenarios that I spoke of, and being, back on Earth and being abused in this way, well, it would be sure that the Draco would make it clear that I was owned by them, and I would be later on out in the Kuiper Belt. But it was sort of instilling the program of master and slave. I will do their bidding, and I will be a psychic asset for them. So it was kind of a training, and for whatever reason, and I think it was training my biology in some way to go and come back through different densities, which is hard on the human biology, if I'm honest. We're not meant for that. We are not meant to go back and forth. But I think it would make it possible for me then to operate the jump gate between that hybrid lab down into Dulce, where they were ferrying cargo back from the Dulce lab up to the top side of the moon and onto the galactic slave trade hubs around the solar system and beyond. So there's a lot there that I just said. But I hope that clarifies a little bit of the sort of like the child's mission. I mean, when you're so young, there's only so much they're going to do with you to some degree, but it was being mastered by the Draco and trained as a psychic operative.
Can you describe to those that don't know what a Draco reptilian looks like, the
Hmm.
features?
Oh, yeah. A little breath there. I
You
do have a little
okay?
fear. Unlike you would fight them. I've been
Oh,
mastered by the Draco in the past, so I can feel myself like, oh, the Draco on the moon at this point, there's different groups and different strata or hierarchy in their society. And the Draco later on in the Kuiper Belt were much higher level. Let's say the Draco on the moon were a little more compliant, less fearsome. They're still huge. They're still muscular. They're a brown. My recollection, the group, the beings that I was, interacting with were like a bronzy kind of green, tall and massively musculature, like just built, built and like strong psychically, that so strong psychically that the telepathy in this, the effect of that is that the telepathy that they have with your mind is very strong and clear. It's not difficult to get their message. You will know on the spot where you're going and what's happening with those Draco. So on, they're mm, I can feel them. I can smell them as I'm kind of going back through this.
you don't have to, my
That
love.
it's
You
just
can.
strong. It's strong and tall and just strong telepathy. I can't describe that. There's nothing quite like Draco mind. Um, So they had said to me at one point, we have everything we need here to create the perfect human. I will never forget that.
Goodness. You know
Good
there are,
God. Yeah.
there are
Mhm.
people that say um, that Queen Elizabeth was a bronzy green Draco. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
true. I have no way of knowing that or proving that, but this is
Uh,
some of the testimonies. Yeah, go ahead. What are you going to
Yeah.
say? Well, did you
Nothing.
think?
I'm just trying to not laugh.
Yeah, I know, I know. Did you ever see them naked? Can you describe their anatomy?
They seem virile. You know, the masculines seem virile. I don't know exactly what their sexual equipment looked like, but there was just such a that and it can, might correlate to very, you know, high levels of human testosterone. You know, just like I don't know. And I, you know, again, I was little, so some of those memories are not as clear as the ones that come later when I'm older and aged in the programs. Um, yeah, I don't know if I can describe more than that. I remember a smell. It's interesting that scent can have such a strong signature. And remember this too. I'm a little kid. I am not trying to look into the body and mind of the Draco. I'm trying to eyes down, stay out of trouble, don't make eye contact with them, and just do their bidding. That's it. Get home. It's like I'm not trying to figure out too much about it. I just want to survive. And I'm so paralyzed with fear. I don't know. Um, you know, I just want to kind of, yeah, it's a survival signature that comes through with all of that.
Bless your heart. When you were captured on Mars by the indigenous reptilians and
Mm.
they kind of carved up your body, I mean, were they kind in any way when they were trying to use your physical cloned body to extend their lives or genetically enhance their survival?
Yeah. And this may, the first person to say it could be Stockholm syndrome, and it could be relevant to the fact that I had undergone such horrific abuse to get me to the point where I was a super soldier on Mars, that their administration seemed very mild, you know. And I remember sitting around in a circle eating food with them, and like they welcomed me into their group at first, and I was never made to feel unwelcome. They honored me like a very esteemed guest. Now, for it to take the turn that it did, we could question all of that. But at the same time, I understand that if I were them, I would be very curious about this newcomer. They had never seen anything like me. They were very, very isolated. They didn't know what the fuck I was. So
Mm,
to them, when they saw the technology, I think it was like, who cares? We just need to do what we need to do. And maybe it was a soul plan on my part in those, you know, talk about the soul again, you know, a plan that I had to ultimately there's a gift inside of this. My son Blue. I never had kids in this life, and you can imagine why. I didn't want to bring more torment and possibilities of abuse to human children that I might bring in. That's a sorrow in my heart. But I have this beautiful son who is part human, part reptilian. For some reason, he's very tall, and he's a warrior. And he comes back to me, and it's very beautiful. So
mm.
I would say, you know, I have to look at the. I always try and look at not just you know to whitewash things, but to say, is there also a gift inside of this? There's a tremendous amount of love that came out of that, for better or worse, you know. So while tragic and harmful, and they ripped the eggs out of my body. I mean, nobody's going to live through that. No woman is going to tolerate that. You're going to destroy the womb if you are not careful. So you can't carry a child if everything in your belly's been disturbed in that way. So they just weren't delicate. They hadn't done this before. It was sort of like a child, you know, you play doctor as a child, as a kid with your friends, and you're like, you don't know what you're
Mm.
doing. It was sort of like that. It was quite messy. So um really unfortunate, because I could have lived through that, but maybe because I was dying, it brought me back to the light ship and the benevolent side of all of this, for saved my life, to go save me, you know, ultimately saved me from complete death. You know, my body expired, but somehow, again, it's a little swimmy, but I'm taken back up to the pod, and myself and my son Blue are still alive. So, ooh, I don't know if that answered your question. Were they benevolent? Were they evil? Were they good? Were
Mm.
they bad? Our polarized human minds want to put everything in one box or the other.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah.
there's some shades of gray inside of that. And in my pile of, you know, space memories, and there's of course a huge file of them that will keep growing as I age and keep getting memory back. But, you know, all of that, though tainted, kind of lands a little bit on the lighter side for me. And their environment was absolutely beautiful. Their environment, I remember light, I remember air. I mean, this is all underground. How did they do this? How fortunate that I was able to I guess visit this place. I mean, it was stunning. It was remarkable. It blew my mind. I mean, it was simple what they had, but they had what they needed. And then again, their biggest win was their spiritual connection to the planetary energies of Mars, which is no small thing, considering how out of relationship we are with our living planet Earth. now, and we have the power, just like we have the power to master our own consciousness and get out of all these programs of ownership and mastery by the other, um, we can rehabilitate our relationship to this planet and make a paradise here. I mean, that much is
Absolutely.
very clear to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't want to be caring and giving a shit about Mars and occupying that. It's already occupied. We want to be remembering to take back our planet here and shifting
yeah.
out the garbage people that have been running it and taking it back fully and creating our
Mhm.
paradise, our heaven on earth, which is right what we're doing now. It's happening now with all the horrors going on. It's the cleanup. It's definitely the cleanup. With the indigenous reptilians that took you, I mean, obviously they see this beautiful specimen of human that they know has technology that could enhance them. So yeah, you're gonna sit around for a few curry dinners there. You know what
Yeah,
I
and then
mean? And
and then
yeah, they'll take care of
yeah.
you for a bit until they're ready to, take you apart. Um, do you remember them ever telling you about their origin? Did they have a god? Did they have a spiritual practice? Did they have markings, hieroglyphs, pictographs? Did they have any kind of ancientness that you could see?
They did. They had a kind of oh boy. It was like I want to say like light codes, even though I've described them as being like the Luddites of the extraterrestrial realm. Not super advanced. There was some kind of light code technology and something um, through psychic means I can see that. And there were glyphs in certain places in their dwellings that seemed um, it's almost like sacred geometry. I don't know how to describe it. And I don't actually know what it all meant. I don't recall their telepathy being like our communication was a little bit stunted. Imagine if you're, somebody who speaks Mandarin, you only speak English, and you're, oh, how do we do this? They didn't have the level of telepathy that I was accustomed to with other races that made it easy to understand what they were saying, what they were doing, what they believed in. But they had been around forever, and hence I have a feeling they they lived a long time. And I said they were dying out, but each lifetime would be quite it seemed to be quite long. Um, I'm trying to remember other architectural structures and these things. I just remember plants and trees and water. And after being on Mars at the bases, it was like, wow, this is an oasis. Take me home.
Yeah.
Really nice. Um, a lot of energetic signatures that are not something I have read in other races or in other like people or humans. Something very, very old and a deep connection to water, which is so interesting because a lot of times we're told that Mars is dry. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what do they know? They lie all the time. Most of the information we've got on our own planet is a lie. Oh, climate warming, global change. No, you're changing. You're terraforming. Be quiet, please. Or enough of your bollocks. I made so many notes here, and so many ways that we could continue to go. But
Yeah, there's a
I,
lot here. I know
yeah, there
there's
is.
just volumes of it,
I know,
Danny.
and
So thank
I
you.
feel like
Yeah.
I feel like I've mined you. I have this guilt. I need to get over it, but because in taking care of people like you that I really care about and respect, I feel like we should probably come to a close for this
Yes.
particular broadcast because you've emptied out so much for us. And I know there'll be people out there too that do get triggered. Just take deep breaths, guys.
Yeah.
Take deep
Hmm.
breaths.
Yeah.
And we've all got work to do, all of us. It would be beautiful. I love that you shared that blue and the kind of the Syrian connection that you have has been such a comfort for you. Um,
Totally. Totally.
yeah, could you just share a little bit
Yeah.
of that, but then tell us about your meditation practice that people might employ that themselves and go to your website and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hmm. Wait, what was the first part? Meditation. What was before that?
How
Blue.
blue
Blue.
this and the Syrians and how you've
Yeah,
connected
it's
there.
understanding the soul. Everything shifted for me when I began to understand the journey of my soul. Like none of this was a fucking accident. This wasn't by mistake. I wasn't victimized. I mean, yes, I was in a conventional sense. Of course I was. I'm not denying that. But there was a bigger soul plan, and I've told you this in my audience before that I came in to explore the deepest, darkest hell realms, the belly of the beast, as I call it, and to become part of its undoing. So that's why, if you're kind of undone by listening to all of this, because it's heavy and it's hard on some level, but there's also so much healing and hope inside of it. I came in for this. I get that, and I've made a peace with that, and that's been tremendously valuable in how I can operate within this and not completely lose my mind. Um, blue, blue couldn't come in until I was ready. I think it took some spiritual readiness on my part to embrace this child. Like example, a woman's been raped. Is she supposed to learn to love that child, or does she want that child out of her life? That's a tricky conundrum. It came out of you. It's part of you. Can you love this kid? Um, and slowly over time, Blue came in as a little baby. He came through meditation, is how he was introduced. I saw this little reptilian kid on my right side. He was playing with. I'm meditating. He's day after day after day. I see this little child. He's playing with my salt lamp and my crystals and stuff that are on my altar space when I meditate. And I was like, "Who the fuck is this kid? Get him out of here!" I had such a like almost disdain for this being. I was like, "Sweetie, what's wrong? This is a high reaction to this like innocent boy." And eventually it came to me. I was in the float tank one night and I was like, it all came back to me. It was just flooded with the memories and it just, I was just sobbing, sobbing, sobbing. But it turned around into light and blue. I see him now as a grown man, and he's a lot of things that he's brought to my life. And one thing is a warmth and a feeling of family, a success rather than a failure, and a kind of love there that is transcendent of everything we could recognize in human form. It's much beyond that, and it transcends space and time. So that's nothing but a gift to me. But it took a little personal journey to kind of open my heart and to be in acceptance of what this means to my life. You know, you run into somebody on the street, like, are you married? Do you have children? Oh, well, can I talk about my kid? No, I probably shouldn't talk about my hybrid. Can I talk about my hybrid kid? I love him. Do you want to see pictures? Oh, sorry. There's no baby book. Um,
Oh my God.
yeah, anyway, so just to the point that sort of there's a big light there. I call him blue because he has a blue field around him. Yeah, it's
Mm.
emanating this pulsing blue light. Um, and that's a win for me, right? That's a total win. So I'll leave it there. I know we're getting long-winded here, but
No,
thank you
not
for
at
letting
all.
me share about him and the light pieces of light, or what I call pieces of light inside a lot of darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
thank you for sharing because that's beautiful and that's something
Mhm.
that you took from it, but we don't want to encourage or I'll speak to the women who were manipulated into having grey hybrids. You do not want to
Yeah.
be lured or drawn into
Yeah.
that and connecting to the greys in that way because they did that
Yeah.
to a lot of women
Yeah.
and lured them, and then people are left with this terrible guilt. Do not seek the guilt. Do not, do not, do not. It is
Absolutely not.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as my meditation practice, boy, I was really painted into a corner back in 2010, 11, 12. My life was kind of falling apart. Things weren't going super good. So I knew I just had to sit. I didn't really have a choice. Then in 2012, I was hit by a car down in, I was a high level athlete at that time. I was out on a training ride in northern New Mexico, got hit by a car and had a head injury, was unconscious. And a lot of memories started coming back after that time. So I was so I began a sitting practice of meditation. And I knew I just had to sit still, work with my breath, my body, the sensations in the body, and the trauma that was coming up as a result of me starting to become present with my experiences. I've had training in a certain lineage over time that's connected to Tibet, the Zen tradition, and also to the spiritual Taoism of very ancient times. It's very embodied in nature, and it is a way of working with the breath and consciousness and touching the cosmos within. And that's a practice that I ultimately use to bear witness to whatever's happening in the moment, to connect with my experience rather than trying to control it. And I practice for about an hour every morning. And,
Mm.
eventually it becomes, and I practice in the evening when I can, eventually it becomes something that there's a present awareness that I'm able to bring to my experience off the cushion. So it starts affecting over the years, starts affecting daily life. And that's where my psychic abilities started to unfold again. A lot of telepathy with higher races, beings presenting themselves to me. The work I do now with people, and I've been doing probably for how many years now, seeing hundreds and even probably thousands of people at this point, clients, began to really present itself to me through meditation. Without that, I don't know if I'd still be alive without meditation, because it's just the thing that, sit in stillness. Everything in your subconscious mind is going to open, and your heart is also going to start to open. A lot of things that we don't want to face will start to appear, but as we learn to abide in the space of loving presence with ourselves, we rehabilitate our relationship to everything inside of us, and so something magnificent can be born. Yeah.
I love that. Would you be okay just to give us a couple of minutes to somebody who may never have heard of this or be how
Mhm.
they would
Yeah.
approach it, please?
Yeah. You want to go through something experiential in the last couple minutes here? You want to do
Yeah.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, everybody, oh, we've been through a lot here. We've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. Thank you for journeying with me, Danny, and all of you listening, watching, sensing, feeling. Just have a breath and see. Oh, have a breath. You might close your eyes if that feels good. Oh, drop down, drop down, drop down. And just notice how the body itself wants to let go in a way. Just kind of a softening through the hips, noticing your seat, your posture. Ooh, and notice any tightness. And of course, your mind will be busy from all the mentalizing and talking we've been doing, also needed. But you can drop into just the subtle sensations in your awareness. Just the gentle rise and fall of the breath, the belly expanding, the chest expanding. And take in some life force energy through the breath. So simple, so simple. It's a way of coming home to yourself in this moment, whatever you may or may not be moving through at the moment. And just making all parts of you welcome here, all that you're going through, all that you're metabolizing. And again, just noticing anything that might want to soften. Softening the body, the mind falls open. And just, it might be a thrumming in your body in the moment. Where is that? Notice your solar plexus, the belly, throat, and the heart space. And I want to say, if there's people out there who do feel pretty, if any of this was distressing, have a breath. And as you do, bring your awareness to the back of the spine. Back of the spine. You can let your awareness kind of journey backwards a little bit. This brings us into a more very expansive state, and kind of can soften some of the polarities of the mind, the clinging of the mind, and awaken us to something that is beyond, maybe beyond linear, beyond time, beyond thoughts, a kind of self-recognition, life being aware of itself, and just tuning in, just allowing yourself to dissolve a little bit into the earth, if that feels good to you. On the exhale, just kind of letting go into that, just releasing contractions, questions, chaos, confusion, just softening. Not necessarily trying to get rid of anything, but just to soften to our own experience in the moment. Body relaxes, the mind falls open. So it is, you come home to yourself. You recognize once and for all that you belong to yourself. You might also want to, if this feels right, breathe into the energy center at the occiput, the base of the skull, that little hollow. Just notice that.
Mm.
Have a breath as if you're breathing through that area. The shoulders soften, the cervical spine, neck kind of soften, shoulders drop. We are here together in this moment, holding the portal open. So much healing and light.
Mm. Beautiful.
As you notice the relay of information from below, you can also notice the opening of the crown and how the light pours into the heart. just a suggestion, and I'll leave it here for now. Yola hori holi, etche me koromana karnon lesho. Chiara de caranato si picema kormahako kirianato, she krianto. So in this way, we begin to glimpse our most sacred and eternal essence. Yeah.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, that was nice. A good way to end. Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, it's in, I mean, again, we traverse some absolute horrors, terrors, mind,
Yeah.
messes that people have never heard before. And again, in this time where the light and the energy and the spelling and the binding and the black magic and all
Yeah.
of the contracts that have now been broken energetically, and we're all coming up into the higher energetic version of ourselves,
Yeah.
our memories are coming up too. And so we need to be able to process hearing testimony like yours, so that for those that connect and know something similar happened to them, and then have a
Yeah.
place to softly land, which is that beautiful meditation there. And then we can go to your website for that kind of deeper level healing, and as you know, there aren't that many people that talk about going back into the spine, the back of the neck, right below the brain. These are areas that have been blocked and trapped and
Yeah.
guru capped, with
Yeah.
all the reptilians and all the rest of it.
Mm.
So that was great and beautiful.
Mm.
Goodness me, Rebecca Rose.
So much to talk about. Thank you so much, Danny.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're an absolute joy. And it's just amazing what you have survived, and to have this strength and beauty and radiance in you that is just so giving. It's so rare. It's so rare to see, all in one beautiful package like you. Can you
Mm.
tell people again how they can? I'll put everything underneath as always, but
Yeah,
tell them
yeah,
how.
Rebecca Rose. Yeah, RebeccaRoseBarfoot.com. You can book sessions with me, one-on-one session packages to go into inner parts integration, readings, healing sessions, galactic attunements, Starseed coaching, and so much more there. I also have a join feature on my YouTube, a new membership option that allows you, if you don't want to book a one-on-one, you want to do some group work in a very economical way, join me there. We're doing some live streams, healing sessions for the group that'll be very interactive in live Q&A. Got one coming up on the 23rd of this month, April. You can pop in and just join for a month, or you can join for a year. I mean, whatever you want to do, but I'm there supporting everybody to kind of come through the other side of this. It's also part of my mission. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. RebeccaRoseBarfoot.com,
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
barefoot.com, but
It's not. It's
barfoot.com.
yeah, it's my father's last name. I would just soon be happy to be leave that off. But yes, this is my website. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful,
Thank you, Danny.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Ah, thank you. I feel so relaxed right now after that traumatic journey
Mhm.
of, I mean, I adore you so much, and so many people do, and none of us like to think about the things that you have endured. But the fact that you still have this extraordinary gift to pull people back into their soul, back into their heart, like you just did. I mean, I need a nap now.
No, that was just a couple minutes. Like,
I know. I'm like, no night.
whoa.
Time for
Well, there's such a
bed.
higher level transmission that probably comes through because whenever I'm
Yes.
channeling for a higher group, like a big group, like a lot of energies come through. Even just a couple minutes, you could really shift your field. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. And you just
Mhm.
beautifully exemplified how that can happen. So anyway, again, Rebecca Rose, thank you so much. I already can't wait for you to come back.
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
always
no
so much to
further.
talk about. Yeah, thank
I
you so
know.
much. Big hugs. Yeah, thank
You
you,
too.
everyone.
You too, my
Yeah.
love.
Okay.
And to you guys out there, again, like I say, be careful. A lot of us are coming back to our memories. We're undoing trauma from childhood in this realm as well. And it's not an easy journey. When a parent dies, when a handler dies, when a monster that's harmed you or those around you dies, they take their energy with them. There is a chemical reaction to that, an emotional reaction to that, a cellular reaction to that. So you got to be careful and
Mm.
loving and calm and mindful as we all repair and heal, but keep raising up that frequency because we win the end. It's like, by the way,
Mm.
we won the end. It just looks like we're not. You got to keep the faith, you guys.
Yes.
Anyway, as always, I am Danny Henderson. I send so much love from my heart to yours, and I'll see you guys soon. Thank you, Rebecca.